How to spread Reformation. I want to talk about two interesting aspects of that today on the Gary DeMar Show. Hello and welcome once again to the Gary DeMar Show. I'm Joel McDermott, sitting in for Gary DeMar. I'd like to talk a little bit about what I've told a couple of groups of people in the past few weeks at conferences. In particular, a week-long conference I was at in Bulgaria, organized by American Vision writer Boljidar Marinov, who's Bulgarian, has a tremendous translation and worldview ministry in Bulgaria, and organized the first annual Bulgarian Worldview Conference. And just this last week, Friday, I got home from San Jose and Santa Cruz, where I attended the West Coast Worldview Conference, which was attended by teenage kids and early college-age kids, about 52 to 55 of them or so, along with a lot of support staff and other speakers. Another week-long conferences covering every area of life from a biblical perspective. At both of these, but especially at the one in Bulgaria, where there's an emphasis on moving out, still recovering from the effects of communism over time, moving into a capitalist society. Still a lot of problems, long way to go there. But particularly at that conference, I said this message. Two aspects of the Reformation that spurred and helped spread the Reformation like wildfire. And the most important one by far had nothing to do with the church, nothing to do with religion at all. And that may sound a little strange to some of you, but it was purely an entrepreneurial effort. This was, of course, it's a very famous story, is the entrepreneurial aspects and work of a man named Johannes Gutenberg. We all know about the Gutenberg invention. It was the movable type of the printing press. A lot of people think it was the printing press. That was already invented. What he did was create movable type so that it was easier to create the plates, and you didn't have to keep destroying the old plates or making new ones for a whole sheet. You just switched the type out. And he put that together with a couple other advances in printing, including advances in ink and other things, and just tremendously revolutionized the way printing was done. It was his invention, and between, I believe it was about 1480 or so, up until the 95 Theses were posted in 1517, there were more documents printed than there had been printed previously in the entire Middle Ages. Because of his invention, this is an amazing thing. It was the internet of his day, so to speak. It transformed communication. It transformed printing, made it enormously cheaper, and therefore caused this revolution of print. And of course, when Luther comes along, he posts his 95 Theses on the door to the Church of Wittenberg in Latin. This was not an effort to reach the masses. It was an effort to reach the clergy with an academic debate. And of course, he succeeded in that, got himself invited to Worms, I believe it was, to, well, actually, no, Worms was the essentially trial, although it wasn't a trial. But he had the debates with Eck, et cetera, with Karlstadt on his side. It was an academic effort, and that's the point. One of the local printers pulled the 95 Theses off the door, saw the revolutionary, so to speak, potential of that document, translates it into German, and then prints so many hundreds of thousands of copies, well, hundreds to thousands of copies. And other printers grabbed it, it spread across Germany. In a mere short period, there were something like 300,000 copies of Luther's writings all across Germany, and really translated all across Europe because of the printing press. Now here's Johannes Gutenberg. He had no lofty ideas of a spiritual reformation. He had no spiritual ambitions at all, as far as I know. He was probably a faithful Christian, but we don't know. He had no ideas of reforming the church. He had no ideas of writing new doctrines or drawing proper doctrines from older books. He had no ideas of any of those things. He was today what would be called a greedy capitalist, period. He was trying to find a way to print more stuff faster, beat his competition, and make more money. It was through that effort that God used his invention to spread Reformation across the world. And this is why I'm telling these people in Bulgaria, and I'm telling these teenage kids in California, work, work, work. It is not a matter of trying to be an expert in doctrine, trying to join the clergy, trying to make some minor change at General Assembly, or start a movement within your church. Instead, go to work, become an entrepreneur, go into business, find a way to improve human life, period, in general, and do it faithfully according to God's law. That's what God calls us to do. The real hero, the greatest hero of the Reformation, is this unsung man, Johannes Gutenberg, who was not a leading figure like Luther or Calvin. He doesn't have the name within church history like we would think, the way church histories are written. He has rather a name in what we often sadly call secular history, but it is still God's history. He was still doing God's work. This is what people need to be encouraged to do, is to work hard and be faithful in working. There is a second aspect, and it does involve the religious side, but in a little slightly different way. Most people don't emphasize the fact that Martin Luther was a member of one of the orders in the Catholic Church, particularly the Augustinian order. On English soil, they were called the Austin Friars, and the story here comes to the fact that this was a brotherhood. Now, these people had shared commitments, shared relationships, and they formed real live relationships. Their allegiances to each other, over as opposed to other orders such as the Dominicans, Franciscans, etc. There were always rivalries between these groups. Each group had a stronger, tight-knit brotherhood relationship with their own people than they did with the other groups, with the other churches across Europe, or even to the Pope himself. Although technically that's not true, on paper that's not true, in real life it was true. And so who do you think gave Martin Luther the readiest hearing when he comes out with his controversial statements? Who do you think looked at him the most, we should say, most favorably and said, okay, let's look at what he's saying and give it a fair hearing? Who do you think they were? Well, of course, they were the Augustinian monks, and on English soil, this was absolutely the case. You had William Tyndale, Thomas Cranmer, Hugh Bilney, others, Miles Coverdale. All of them were Austin Friars or were associated with the Austin Friars group at Cambridge. And these are the guys who were meeting in the White Horse Inn, which was a tavern. They were not directing a movement from within the church. This was not a movement from within the chancel. It was a movement from within the bar, because they were sitting around a table in a tavern, drinking beer together and talking about doctrine, debating, discussing. This was real human fellowship, okay? It was not the kind of phony stuff we get in the church history books, so to speak, although there's some real stuff there too, of course. These men were engaged in real, genuine brotherhood. And so there's a second aspect. The one is the individual entrepreneurial effort, the kind of thing American history is known for. The other one is this genuine, real-life fellowship that these guys had together, working together. If you want to actually put it in philosophical terms, it's the one and the many. But those things both transcended all of the things we've written in church history about the church, the popes, and the princes, and all that stuff. These were the forces that were working behind the scenes to spread the Reformation. This is part of what I told these people at these conferences. This is part of the message I'll keep preaching on into the future. And if I get a chance, maybe I'll do another show on this topic. Appreciate you joining me today. I'm Joel McDermott. Thank you for watching the Gary DeMar Show.
American Vision is proud to present this year's Worldview Super Conference, July 21st through 24th at North Metro Church, Marietta, Georgia. For more information, visit conference.americanvision.org. That's conference.americanvision.org.